Hey there, it's Mazzy here, and this is just a little bit of an overview. I'm at a point right now with these videos, with everything going on in the world right now in the year 2020. Today is the day before Election Day, and I want to show something that's brought myself and a lot of vinyl collectors a lot of pleasure over the last 2 years, and that's the Tone Poet series of records. There's been countless videos on this great series. Just a brief history for you newbies. Tone Poet is Joe Harley, a nickname I think it was Charles Lloyd gave to Joe Harley. Joe Harley and Ron Rombach started Music Matters Jazz, an audiophile label in the mid-2000s. I'm thinking 2006 or so. Don't kick me in the butt if that's the wrong year. They took all Blue Note records and made audiophile pressings, going to the master tapes and emulating as best they can what they heard on the master tapes. So these audiophile pressings will not sound like the Rudy Van Gelder original LPs. If you prefer those, great. At the time, certain lows and highs were cut off for the compromise for systems people had. Gets more complicated than that, but you can read countless interviews with Joe Harley and other people involved with Don Was, the head of Blue Note. Cut to last year, maybe 2 years ago, Don Was brings Joe Harley in after what some would say a debacle with the Blue Note 75 release, the 70th anniversary releases. Cut digitally, which is not a problem in itself, but a lot of buyers really like all analog whenever possible presses and better covers. Also, there were issues with the pressings of those Tone Poet 75, a lot of issues. I personally bought the first 3 or 4. I had issues. They were terrible. I returned them. I wrote letters to Blue Note, literally 4 emails, never got a response at that point. But they redeemed themselves with the Blue Note 80 series that were all analog, more of a budget label. I like to say budget, that sounds $22, $24. It's certainly not budget, but apparently a soft spot where retailers like to have great jazz records in the $20 to $25 range, new records. The Tone Poets list for about $35. You can get them as low as usually, I'd say, $26, $27 depending, and sometimes better deals. Anyway, these are the 2 latest I just got. Most of the Tone Poets also are gatefolds like Music Matters, and they have images inside from Michael Cascuna's collection of the Francis Wolff archive, and beautiful Stoughton covers, tip-down covers, and occasionally there's some like this, which is not gatefold. I'll just show these at the beginning. But what I'm going to do is show all my Tone Poet collection. Just flip through the order. I have mine in a flip bin, alpha order. I have almost all of them. I think there's a Cassandra Wilson and one other I may not have picked up. But big fan of these pressings, and it's so great that a lot of new people are getting into jazz. A lot of people who've been in rock and roll and country and folk and all the other genres are getting these records and have access to these wonderful pressings and still love and care. So 2019, 2020 are the 2 years of Tone Poet, and they're releasing an average about 3 a month. This month only 2 came out. The Art Blakey was delayed. I think they're still catching up with the pandemic shutdown at RTI. Duke Pearson, The Phantom. I didn't know this record. This is 1968, and this is sort of a funky I don't want to say psychedelic, but it's got that Eastern feel to it in terms of the moods that was coming out in 1968, very much kind of like East West, which is actually from 1966 by the Paul Butterfield Blues Band, with those Eastern note chord patterns and everything, which is really beautiful. This is such a gorgeous record, and it sounds amazing. And also Oblique, the great Bobby Hutcherson, vibe player that I used to see a lot in the 70s, because his last final years he was based in the Bay Area, so he'd play Keystone Corner a lot in San Francisco and other clubs. This is really great. This is from 1979. Is this 1979, that late? And I think it's this record that wasn't initially released until 1979. It was put back, and finally when Kuskuna started reissuing sessions from Blue Note, when he was curating the archive, this was released, different cover, different formation. But these are just the latest, so now we're going to flip through them. So, you know, a lot of people on YouTube, a lot of people on the forums around, like the Hoffman forums, are just really into these records, and they're gorgeous records. And I've been picking up every single one, even the ones I don't know about, because you know, I think even though these are going to be staying in print in the near future, these are pretty wonderful. Music Matters Jazz are virtually out of print, and it's really hard to get some of those for the price. And so anyway, without further ado, let's just flip through some records and enjoy the music. By the way, in the background, great kind of slightly out there record, which is one of the Tone Poets, is Black Fire. And that's by Andrew Hill. So without further ado, my Tone Poet collection. Chet Baker Sings, Tina Brooks Minor Moves, introducing Kenny Burrell, Donald Byrd Chant, posthumous release, Chick Corea Now He Sings, Now He Sobs, from Solid State label, Donald Byrd Mr. Shingling, Muddy Jungle, Duke Ellington, Mingus, Max Roach, amazing session. New Bottle of Wine, Gil Evans from World Pacific. Clubhouse, Dexter Gordon. Born to Be Run, Grant Green, obviously one of Blue Note's most popular artists. Grant Green, Nigeria. A Point of View, Herbie Hancock. Herbie Hancock, The Prisoner, late 60s. 1969. 2 volumes. Joe Henderson, A State of the Tenor, from the Village Vanguard. 1 and 2, I believe these are digital recordings. This is what's playing now in the background. Andrew Hill, Black Fire. Bobby Hutcherson, The Kicker, fabulous record. Bobby Hutcherson, Oblique, one of the new ones I just showed. Jackie McLean, one of the great covers, one of the great, oh my God, one of the great Reed Miles covers. What an innovator. Hank Mobley, Poppin'. The Cooker, Lee Morgan. Yes, I keep these in the original sleeves. I open the top and just use these. I don't use the fancy schmancy added on top other sleeves, but you know, to each our own. Cornbread, Lee Morgan, another artist who has a lot of records on Blue Note. Duke Pearson, The Phantom, which I just showcased. Sam Rivers, Contours, one of the first of the Tone Poet releases in 2019. Really great record. Same as this, one of the early ones, Wayne Shorter's, etc. I believe this went into a repress finally. All these are in print, and apparently they're selling much better than anyone anticipated, which is great for longevity of the series, hopefully. This just came out last month, Horace Silver's Quintet, further explorations by them. Prayer Meeting Jimmy Smith. I think actually he was the biggest selling artist on Blue Note. He has a couple, I think one record coming out with a new classic series. Blue Note's putting a classic series together for 2021, which is replacing the Blue Note 80, all analog. They'll be in the $24 range. Of course, that means you can get them as little as maybe $17, $18. They're not going to have the fancy schmancy covers, but there'll be some of the more classic records. I think like Sidewinder is starting out. This is more spiritual side. Lonnie Smith, Dr. Lonnie Smith, All in My Mind. A very moody live set. Organ player. Dreamy. Light some incense when you play this one, or smoke a J. Hustlin', Stanley Turrentine with Shirley Scott, who he was married to. Shirley Scott on the organ, and of course Stanley Turrentine, the great sax player. Another Stanley Turrentine with Les McCann, Herbie Lewis, and Otis Finch. That's Where It's At, Baby. Of course, Baby's not a part of it, and yet another Turrentine coming your way with his brother Tommy Turrentine, the great Horace Parlan, George Tucker, Al Harewood. I tell you, I've been getting into Horace Parlan a lot. I have Music Matters Jazz, and he did pretty interesting. Like he didn't have use of his his fourth and fifth finger on his right hand. But what a great piano player. Horace Parlan records. He's someone that I got into the last few years that I really didn't know much about. And ending up with Babyfest Willett, or Babyface Willett, depending what part of the country you come from, and I don't know how he pronounced it, so, you know, I'm sure someone here will tell me. Face to Face, I think this might have been his only session for Blue Note, or his only session that he led, and great Grant Green on guitar, of course. So there's room for more. I'm gonna have to go into another bin. I keep these in a flip bin. All my Music Matters are on a separate shelf. I have 69 Music Matters collections. So thanks Tone Poet, thanks Blue Note for doing these, and I'm looking forward to these. I feel like I'm on a subscription because I think I have the next 4 or 5 titles pre-ordered. So Mazzy loves you, thanks a lot.